Okay, so I think, like I've said in the past, is that every form of yoga, every style, so-called style of yoga, or every so-called school of yoga, they have their own rules and principles that govern how the practice is supposed to go. So if you see somebody doing Ashtanga yoga, you should be able to see by the way that they're moving what type of yoga that they're doing. So if I see Ashtanga yoga, I can tell it's Ashtanga yoga. If I see Iyengar yoga, I can tell that it's Iyengar yoga, and so on and so forth. And when I see Kemetic yoga and YogaSkills method, I can tell that because the practitioners of this system use a technique which is called rule of four breathing and geometric progression. Okay? So when we are practicing rule of four breathing, we are taking each breath and dividing it into four parts. Those four parts are the inhalation, a pause, an exhalation, and a pause. And then we are coordinating those breaths, the inhalation and the exhalation, with our movement. Okay? And so the body is moving in a coordination with the way that the breath is moving. Okay? And so each inhalation corresponds to a part of the posture. Each exhalation corresponds to a part of the movement or the posture, and each space, each pause between the inhalation and the exhalation, between the exhalation and the next inhalation, that is when the body is still. Okay, you got that? That's when the body is still. So on those parts between the inhalation and the exhalation, there should be a slight stillness. Okay. So if I am doing pose of Asar, so I'm standing in this position. I'm going to do the left side first, and notice I know that the people I'm teaching, my class is here. So I want to turn my body in a position so that they're going to see me. So I don't want to be facing this way, so that then when I turn my body to my left, I got my back to my class, right? Okay, that makes sense? So when you are teaching, you have to decide what direction you're going to stand, and you got to coordinate your positioning in relationship to the people that's in your class and the direction that they're looking from. Okay, so rule of four breathing is going to be, I'm going to come into position, I'm going to breathe in first, and then when I breathe out, I'm going to move in coordination with my exhalation. So what I do not want to do is breathe in, exhale, and then twist, right? I want to breathe in and I want to twist at the same time that I'm exhaling. So my turning of my body is coordinated completely with the exhalation. And so I'm moving from my lower back, my middle back, and my upper back. Notice that my hands don't do like this. My hands are gonna, when I begin, my hands are right in front of my chest. When I turn, my hands remain in front of my chest because I am isolating my body, just turning those parts of the body which I needed to be turned. So think about the spine divided into four parts. You got your lower back, the lower part of your spine, the middle part of your spine, the upper part of your spine, and then the fourth part of your spine is going to be the cervical vertebrae of your neck. So I breathe in and I slowly turn to my left. I exhale. I'm still exhaling. I'm still exhaling. I'm still exhaling until I get to here. And then I pause. Then I breathe in. And then I exhale and I turn my head to the right. So now I'm working on the fourth part of my spine, which is the neck. The neck, the seven vertebrae of your neck are called the cervical vertebrae. With the inhalation, I turn my head to the center. With the exhalation, I turn my head behind to the opposite direction. And then I bring my head back to the center. And then with the inhalation, I turn my body back to the front. And then I exhale and I release. And then I turn this way. So my class is this way. I'm going to turn this way. I'm going to breathe in. And as I exhale, I'm going to turn from my lower back. I'm still exhaling, exhaling all the way through the end of the movement. My hands do not change position. My hands begin facing my chest. They end up facing my chest. And then I breathe in. As I exhale, my head turns to the left. As I breathe in, my head comes over my chest. And as I exhale, my head turns to my right. And as I turn my head to the right, I realign my chin over my chest. And then I breathe in and come here. So I breathe in back to this position. And then I exhale. And then there's a pause after my exhalation. And then I inhale and I extend the arms up. And then I slowly exhale and I coordinate the downward motion of my arms with the exhalation of my breath. Okay? Then I breathe in, slowly breathe out, breathe in, slowly exhale. Okay? And so when you are practicing Kemetic yoga, using those principles of rule of four breathing and geometric progression, you should see an obvious, you should see the characteristics of that practice should be very obvious, you know? Okay, so before I keep talking, any question, comment?
Oh, yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about geometric progression, as it applies to Kemetic yoga being, part of the core of how the postures and the sequences are laid out?
Okay, so the geometric progression is occurring within each posture. So if you notice, when I started off, I'm in a straight line like this, right? So this is my first, so geometrically, I'm a straight line, I'm a line. So then the next, so I'm going to progressively take on a more increasingly complex form, if I'm saying that right. So I'm starting off as a straight line. I add this, I add that. Okay? So you see my geometry change, right? But I didn't say this. I said 1, 2. And then I take an inhalation. And then with the exhalation, I'm turning. So I am still adding more to my geometric progression. So with each stage, with each step that I take, I am increasing the geometric. I am progressing through and creating a more complex geometric structure. So I'm here. I continue to build on my geometry. I build in. And then I slowly breathe out. So that is another geometric addition. I breathe in, and whatever I do in one direction, I have to do the same thing in the opposite direction. So I exhale. So you notice I turn my head to the front, to the center, and then on the last part of it, I inhale and I exhale and I turn my head back behind me. Then I bring my head back to the center, and then I reverse my geometry. I reverse the progression. So I come back to here, I inhale back to here, I exhale, and then I do the same thing on the opposite side, come back to the center, and then I breathe in, and then I exhale. Okay. And then after I go through the whole sequence, I'm not doing the whole sequence right now. But when I finish the sequence, I return back to the 1. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. And so from your question, the other part of what you may call geometric progression may be your sequencing. So what postures do we do first? What posture comes second? What practice comes third, fourth? So there's a logic to how you move and what pose, what order, that's what I'm trying to say, what order that you perform your practice in. So your basic order is going to be that you begin with cleansing breath, right? After cleansing breath, you go into Sahu pose. So cleansing breath is done with your hands on your abdomen. So you find your navel, you put your palms on your abdomen, you breathe in, expand your abdomen, you exhale through your mouth and squeeze the abdomen flat. Try to squeeze all the air out of the lungs, and then you breathe in again. So you do that breathing process. You're still observing rule of 4 breathing, right? So you're inhaling, pause, exhale, and then pause before you inhale again. Okay? Everybody got that, right? Let me hear something.
Yes, got that.
You got it, Tamika?
Yep, I understand.
You got it, Kumasi? Okay.
I'm here. I'm listening. I'm here.
But is that understood though? So I'm asking is the concept of the rule of 4 breathing.
The concept of the rule of 4 breathing is understood with the body movement and sequence with your breath. I understand that.
Okay, good. Okay. So I just want to make sure, because that's the core of what we're doing. Okay. So, so if you're doing any posture, if you're doing one individual, so in your training manual, there's a section that talks about movements, postures, and poses, right? and what the differences are. Well, so I'm going to use the term practice. Like, so each thing that we do, we can call that a practice. So example, if we sit on the floor and we do 4 bending pose, we can call that a practice. If we sit on the floor and we do spinal twist, we can call that a practice. If we sit on the floor and we do the spider, the backward bending pose, that can be called a practice. So we have individual poses, individual postures that we do. All of those individual poses and postures that we do, we are also moving. So you can use the term movement, posture, or pose interchangeably. Okay? You can use those terms interchangeably. Now, when we go from one posture or one practice or one pose to the next, okay, that is part of our sequencing. So it's 2 ideas along with sequencing, right? If I do Ma'at Ka, right? That's a sequence because I'm starting off here, I'm inhaling, exhaling, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And I'm going through that, and I'm going through the pose using geometric progression, right? So that whole series of postures that we call the that we call the Ma'at Ka, that is a sequence. When we do sun salutation and we start off standing and we inhale and exhale and inhale and exhale and inhale up and exhale down and then do lunge and then do all the different poses. That is a sequence. So a sequence can what? A sequence can contain a series of different postures or poses that are done in a row. Thus a sequence. So Ma'at Ka is a sequence. Sun salutation is a sequence. Tekken sequence, which is in the name, is a sequence. Okay? Sitting on the floor and doing forward bend, sitting on the floor doing backward bend, and other individual postures, sitting on the floor doing spinal twist, those are individual postures. Those are not sequences. But they have different stages within the posture, right? So if I'm going to be doing, okay, let me give you something where I'm standing. So if I'm doing triangle pose, right? So triangle is an individual pose, right? So it's called triangle pose. But the triangle pose has various steps within that pose. So it's not really a sequence, it's just got different steps for you to get into the pose. And you're doing the pose geometrically. So you're still observing geometric progression, and rule of 4 breathing. So if I'm going to do triangle pose, I'm going to come here first. I'm going to do this second, and then come here. Then I'm going to adjust my hips. Okay? And then from here, I'm going to breathe in and then breathe out. Inhale, exhale. So I go into this warrior type pose for a second, right? Then I breathe in, and then I exhale down, inhale, and then exhale. Bring this here, inhale up, come up on the heel, and then exhale, flowing out of the movement, right? So you can call the triangle pose a posture. You can call it a movement because you are moving. So the thing is not to get caught up into the words because most of the words are just interchangeable. Okay, that makes sense?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah,
And so after, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just agreeing. I said, yes, it makes sense.
Okay, so your goal, so in terms of what postures, so you're teaching a class, right? And you want to determine what posture are you going to do first, or what practice, or what sequence, or whatever it is. What are you going to do first? What are you going to do second? What are you going to do third, right? That's another form of sequencing. So you sort of sequence your class to make logical sense. So you can decide ahead of time what are the most important practices that you want to do for that particular day. Or when you see the people in your class for that day, because sometimes, you have this group of people come, then sometimes somebody new come and the other person didn't come. And so you have to do an assessment. So when I'm teaching, I sort of do a visual assessment of this person, of if somebody new comes to my class, I try to look at them and I try to get some ideas about the characteristics of their body. And by me doing that type of assessment, it sort of lets me know what they need to do. Because when I'm teaching, my goal is to help a person to overcome the limitations in their body. If their shoulders have a degree of stiffness, if their hips have a degree of stiffness, if I see that they have a limitation when they're bending forward, those basic initial postures that we go through is giving me data, giving me information that's going to help me decide what I'm going to do with that particular class on that particular day. Okay? Because I can get an idea what people need to work on.
Question.
Okay? Yes, sir.
So am I hearing you saying your goal is to increase like range of motion, I'm hearing, but is that even if the student is feeling discomfort or pain?
Well, once you determine that the person has, I use the term restriction. So this person has a restriction in their lateral movement, or they have a restriction in their forward movement, right? Then you have to determine how you're going to approach that. and you want to have a gentle way of helping that person go step by step to begin the process of overcoming that, I'm gonna use the word limitation, because it's limiting their range, not that it limited them as a person, but it's limiting their range of motion. And so we want to see an increased range of motion, because we know that in what goes along with that range of motion is an increase in blood circulation, an increase in muscular release and tension release. So our goal is not just to say, oh, you're stiff, I want to make you more flexible. Our goal is to get the benefits that go along with that increased range of motion. So that increased range of motion, again, you have increased release of tension in the muscles. You have an increase in blood circulation. You have an increase in lymphatic fluid motion. You have an increase in nerve function, because instead of that restriction being on the nerves because of the tightness of the muscle, now the nerve energy is able to move more efficiently, from in the body, especially if it's being trapped by a joint, or it's being trapped by a tight muscle, or it's being trapped by the fact that the spine itself is out of alignment. So when that spine, your spinal column is carrying your electrical impulses up and down your body. And so if you got one vertebrae that's moving this way, and the vertebrae above it is moving that way, then that's a restriction on that on the nerve energy, which is moving through the spine. So therefore, when we do a forward bend, when we do a backward bend, when we do a twisting motion, we are trying to take away the tension in the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, and all of the various connective tissue, which may be impinging. So I'm choosing my words very carefully. So though that tension is impinging on the spine itself, the spinal cord itself. So I'll use this as an example of the spine, a straight structure. And then you have peripheral nerves that emanate off the spine, right? And they come from the spinal cord, and they go where? They go into the different organs, right? And so you want to take that tension off the spine, off of the vertebrae of the spine, and the tissues that hold because there is tissue that holds those vertebrae in space, in place. That's why we breathe in and we slowly breathe out. And we're releasing the neck, releasing the vertebrae, we're releasing the connective tissue that are holding the vertebrae in the neck in place, right? So I'm saying all of that to say that you have to look at the person, do an assessment. How do I need to approach the posture? I know that I want to go forward being with this person. I want this person to be able to move forward. Are we going to do that by standing and bending forward? Are we going to do that by sitting on the floor and bending forward? Are we going to bend? To what degree are we going to bend the knees? So on and so forth, right? So you have to determine, so each posture or each practice that we do basically has 3 levels, right? So you need to know what level 1 is, what level 2 is, what level 3 is. And you want to, and so what you want to do is when you have students, you want to be able to get them to be able to perform the most basic posture. Some people are very naturally flexible. So they're not going to have no problem doing a posture. But that person who may be very flexible, maybe their body is too loose and their body is flopping. And they're not really getting the full benefit of the yoga practice because they just flopping into a posture that their body can do, but they're not really getting the full lengthening of the muscle. They're not getting the full release of tension in the connective tissue. Somebody else who is what we may call stiff, that person may not be able to go very far into the posture. So what your goal is to help the person go as far into the posture as they can without feeling, without feeling like you're overburdening them, but at the same time, challenge them enough to go beyond their perception of how far they can go within the posture. So that goes into, oh, I'm going to assist the person. I'm going to make a modification in the posture for that person. So if we do triangle pose, for example, and see, a lot of this stuff I'm telling you, it comes with experience. If we're doing triangle pose, for example, right? When we do triangle pose, the first level triangle pose we do, right? Because I said most of our postures have at least 3 levels, right? Level 1 triangle pose is just come here, do like this, lift up to there, and then go over to here, right? Now suppose a person, their arm is only coming up to here. So you may want to assist that person to lengthen further, bringing the arm to the ear. Suppose a person let their head drop like that. You want to assist them by giving them the message to not let the head drop, but to bring the head up. So in that case, you're trying to bring the arm and the ear close to each other. And then when it comes to the breath, you inhale, exhale, come here, and you always push up with the hand so that you're not straining the back. Okay? And so triangle pose, that's a really good posture to get people doing when they're in the beginning stages, right? And to do that beginning stage of the triangle pose because it's involving multiple areas of the body. So you're working with your latissimus dorsi, that's this muscle here. You're working with your trapezius muscle. These are major muscles that are involved with stress. They get contracted, they get tight as a result of stress. And so when you work that triangle pose and you have to get through those postures and to lengthen, when they get finished, they say, oh, I feel so much better. Because what is the postures doing? What is the basic benefit of doing any posture, any practice? You're lengthening the muscle. What happens when you lengthen the muscle? You are increasing the blood supply. What happens when you increase the blood supply? The blood is carrying more oxygen into the tissues. The movement itself is allowing more blood supply to go into the brain, to go into the different structures around the brain, your eyes, your nostrils, your ears, and into the brain cavity, into the brain tissue itself. And so you're going to feel more alert. You're going to feel more conscious as a result of doing the posture. So that's why when you teach a posture, you want to then have the person become still and observe and pay attention to the effect of that posture. How is this posture affecting me? How did this posture I just did, how did it make me feel? So those are the things you're trying to create awareness of. So every movement that we do, it should take tension out of the major muscle. It should increase blood circulation. It should help to align the body. It should help to stimulate. This is very important. It should help to stimulate the internal organs. So I'm going to go back to triangle pose. If I do triangle pose, sorry about that. If I do triangle pose, let me do my other side. What's happening, right? This leg is becoming firm. So I'm strengthening my thigh. A lot of people have knee problems. So I bend the knee just slightly. The knee never goes past the ankles. And then I take my hips and I turn my hips out to here. And then I rest my arm here. Don't let the head go down. Keep the head straight. Put the other hand on the hip. Extend, rotate. Inhale and lift. Exhale and go forward. Okay? Inhale up. Exhale. Push back up. And pivot. Then once you do both sides, then you go into your forward bend and come back up. Okay? And so now with that one simple posture, going to the left, going to the right, then going forward, you're affecting almost everything in the body, and you're not really stressing the person out by making them do something which is beyond their capability of doing. Also, when you do that triangle pose in that way, you are avoiding the need to use props like blocks and stuff, right? So a lot of times, this going back to the old previous questions before about using props and stuff, right? So variation 1 of triangle pose, I don't see where you would need a prop. I don't see where you would need a block because you're going into variation 1. But if you take somebody who's never done yoga before and you say, let's do variation 3 of the triangle pose. And so you say, okay, start here, go here, do this, touch the floor. They can't touch the floor. So you're going to put a block there for them to touch the floor. What I say is that let them do this first, and get their body acclimated. Let them do this second, after they did the first variation, do that for a few weeks. And then take them into variation 2. Because now their body is changing. And then after so much more time, then take them into variation 3. And if they still need a block, you can put a block there. But if you want to reduce the need for using blocks, you don't want to, in my opinion, you do not want to have people using blocks the first time they come to a class. So you can think about the variations. We got variation 1, 2, and 3. Now, suppose the person has had a stroke. Suppose the person has a partial paralysis. Suppose a person has an injury, then you can use a block to help that person do a particular technique, because you're trying to work through an issue that they have. But in general, I try to stay away from blocks. The main device that I use is going to be the sandbag on the abdomen. And that's the main device that people do not ever use. Because when you go to these yoga studios, they don't never tell you to breathe using the sandbag. But to me, that's the basic foundation of everything that you're doing, is using your breath. So when you put that 10-pound sandbag on your abdomen and you breathe in and you let your abdomen push that sandbag up, and when you exhale, you let that sandbag help to push that air out. That's the foundation of practicing yoga, controlling your breathing and developing your respiratory system. Okay. So the same principles that I'm talking about within triangle pose, you can apply the same things to any posture that you do. Whether you're talking about sitting forward bending pose, whether you're talking about spider. So let me demonstrate some of that. Okay. So I hope I'm okay. Here we go. I think I need to turn this down a little bit more. Okay, so I'm gonna go a little bit through your sequence. Okay, so what's the first movement in your sequence? It's gonna be cleansing breath on your back. Find your navel. Put your right hand on right below your navel. Put your left hand on the back of your right. Make sure your upper arm from the shoulders down to your elbow are able to touch the floor. So suppose you have a person with a large midsection. You don't want them to have their arms up like this, just to put their hands on their stomach. Move the hands away, and so that make sure that the arms touch here. So even if the stomach is extending out, the hands are gonna touch the abdomen, but you don't want your arms lifted up like that because that's gonna be uncomfortable. So let them do this, okay? So then the hands are here, and there's the inhalation through the nose. Pause the breath, hold the breath, open the mouth, exhale out through the mouth. And then close the mouth and breathe in again through the nose. Hold the breath, open the mouth, and then slowly exhale. So that is cleansing breath. Sahu pose follows the cleansing breath. The right hand is going to move up. So instead of both hands resting here, we move the right hand up slightly towards the lower part of the chest. We put the left hand on the back of the right. We make sure that the thumbs touch, make a pyramid shape. In this posture, this is where we touch the tip of the tongue gently to the roof of the mouth. And we breathe in slowly through the nose. We hold the breath after we breathe in, hold the breath for 1 to 2 seconds. And then we slowly exhale the breath and we let the abdomen sink. After we exhale, don't breathe in right away. Stop your breath. Become still for 1, 2, 3 seconds. And then very consciously, with control, begin your next inhalation. After you breathe in, pause. Hold your breath for 1, 2, 3 seconds. And then slowly exhale. Always keeping the tip of your tongue connected to the roof of your mouth. Now, when you're teaching this, you have to teach it in such a way that you are helping your students to understand. So you have to choose your words and your methodology of teaching properly, okay? But the main thing that allows you to know what you are doing is going to be generated from your own practice. Your practice informs your teaching because you're learning, when you're teaching yourself how to do the practices, that tells you how to teach somebody else because you are encountering obstacles and difficulties that you can then say, how did you overcome that obstacle? Okay? When you are trying to do this and you're trying to breathe in slow and breathe out slow, it's natural for different thoughts to try to come into your mind. So what do you need to do? You need to learn how to focus your mind on your breathing. So don't think about some music that you like. Don't think about what you're going to do tomorrow. All you want to focus on is observing the movement of your breath. You should observe the breath as it comes into your nostrils. Be aware, oh, when the breath comes into my nostrils, it's cool along the walls of my nostrils. As my breath comes into my body, my abdomen expands upward. When I hold my breath, after I inhale, I'm going to pause. For how long? 1, 2, 3 seconds. And then when I exhale slowly, what am I experiencing? I am experiencing the weight of my body being released and sinking downward into the earth. So these are the things I'm thinking about. These are the things I'm experiencing when I am doing the Sahu pose. And as I continue to practice the Sahu pose, I want to visualize life force being drawn from this area of my body, below my navel, moving up my body as I breathe in, moving to the top of my head, moving into the middle of my forehead. All of this should occur when I breathe in. When I exhale, I want to feel that energy move through the arms into the hands and simultaneously down the legs and into the feet. Okay? So that is energy flow. And so I want to begin to experience this when I do my Sahu pose, which happens at the beginning of my practice, and I end my practice with what? The same Sahu pose. Okay? And then when I come out of this movement, I inhale, I exhale, I bring my legs together, I flex my feet, I bring my head and shoulders up, I bring my hands above my thighs, I exhale and I squeeze my abdominal muscles, and then I inhale, the inhalation lifts me up, the exhalation brings my hands down to my knees, and I release my shoulders and keep my back straight. And I breathe in and out. So what do I do after I come up and sit up? Do I start moving around real fast? No, I stay still for maybe 3 to 5 seconds. And then I try to experience the changes, the physiological and biological changes. Every practice that I do is causing physiological and biochemical changes and also bioenergetic changes. So get these 3 things in your consciousness: physiological changes, biological changes, and bioenergetic changes. So physiological changes are going to be changes in the physiology of your body, your nervous system, your blood circulation, your heart rate, those type of things. Physiological changes are going to be in the way that your organs are functioning, okay? Also, along with those other 2 things are going to be the creation of different types of neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters, those are chemicals that your body naturally produce that change your mood, change the way that you feel, change your outlook, and the way that you are experiencing the external world around you. That is why, in order to stimulate those biochemicals, is the reason why you practice yoga. It's not to stretch, it's to stimulate those biochemical, it's to create those biochemical changes that then change the way that you feel and change the way that you are perceiving reality. Okay? Okay? And so what comes next in your sequence, you're going to go into your sesh pose. So sitting with your legs crossed, that's sesh pose. So, of course, most people have issues with sitting like this, right? So sometimes, especially when you have men that's sitting up like this, so their knees are not able to go down, their ankles are stiff, their knees are stiff, and their lower back is stiff, so they sit like this. So this is my position from when I first started to practice yoga. I was like this. So it took about a year for me just to get up like this and let my legs cross. And then it took me another year to bring my feet up to do the full lotus position. So it took me 2 years within the time that I started practicing to move myself into a place where I could do the full lotus. But when we do this posture, which we call sesh pose variation 1, we hold on to the front leg and we sit up on the tuberosities, that's your sit bones, and we press the forearms down. We keep the tip of the tongue connected to the roof of the mouth. When we breathe in, we tilt the head halfway back. When we breathe out, the head goes back. When we breathe in, the head comes up. When we exhale, the chin comes down towards the chest, lengthening the muscles in the back of the neck. And then we breathe in and bring the head up straight. And then when we exhale, the head turns laterally to the left. When we breathe in, the head turns to the center. And when we exhale, the head turns to the right. Okay? And then we bring the head back to the center. Right hand underneath the left knee, left hand in the back of the right, the inhalation. With the exhalation, we try to guide the chest to the thigh. We try to guide the chin past the knee. So we breathe in, and then we exhale. We contract the abdomen, bringing the chin towards the knee, wrapping the arms around the leg, inhaling, and then exhale. Release the leg, inhale up, turning to the opposite side. So notice that when I come up, I don't sit up like this and then lift my arms and then do like this. Notice the fluidity of my movement. I'm breathing in. I'm exhaling. I'm inhaling. And I exhale. When I exhale, what's happening with my abdomen? I'm contracting my abdomen. So the exhalation of the breath is always bringing my abdomen in towards my body. I hold it for 2 breaths, 2 or 3 breaths. I release and I breathe in. Notice I'm coming up all this one. I'm breathing in. I'm exhaling. I'm inhaling. I'm exhaling. Inhaling, exhaling. Inhaling, exhaling. And then breathe. Okay? So that is called sesh pose, variation 1.
Sorry, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is there any specific reason why we typically do the left first, followed by the right? Like, is there any physiological reason why, or is it part of the theoretical part of the practice? I'm just curious.
The most basic answer to that is that most people are right-handed. And so the left side of the body is normally the stiffer side of the body. So you work the stiffer side of the body first, or the more stiffer or weaker side of the body. And so we normally go to the left first, and then we do the right side. And that's the
Okay,
basic reason for it.
okay.
I don't think, I can come up with some kind of deep metaphysical
Right. I wasn't sure if there
explanation.
was something like that, so I did.
No, not really. You know, um, yeah. It's because most people have a harder time doing stuff on their left. So we do the left first. And so that we can try to balance. So we can try to balance the 2 sides of the body. So we can make the dominant side more balanced, make the weaker side more balanced with the dominant side. That's the basic reason for it. So you got sesh pose, variation 1, and after you do sesh pose, variation 1. Now, also notice this. We call this sesh pose, but you can sit like this, and that's just doing a pose. Or you can go through all the little movements and postures within that, and you can call that a sequence, right? That makes sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So after you do, and so when you have your students doing this posture, for example, you can sort of see what they need to work on. Because if they're like this and they have a lot of difficulty, that's giving you an indication. You're testing them. Not testing them, but you're assessing. Okay, ankles, knees, hips, lower back, spine, neck, shoulders. It's giving you some indication of what this person needs to work on. Okay. So after you finish the sesh pose, and you do that first evaluation, that first assessment, then you can have them doing a sitting forward bending pose. So with this sitting forward bending pose, legs are straight, the feet are flexing towards the body, and the knees bend. The hands come underneath the knees, and we sit up. We bring the arms out to the side, and think about the isolation that we do in the shoulder. When I turn my arms up, I'm not just turning my wrists. I'm focusing right here, my entire arm. You see how my whole arm is turning? And then I'm lifting. We do that all the time in all our postures where we have to extend. And then I bring my hands together. So I want to extend up as high as I can and try to get my arms as close to my ears as I can. And then when I turn my arms forward, I'm breathing in. And then I have 3 release points, right? My lower back, I'm releasing from. My middle back, releasing. And then I'm releasing from my upper back and my shoulders. And then my head goes down, my chin goes down towards my chest. Then I'm breathing in, breathing out, releasing, inhaling up, legs flat, and then exhaling, and I let the hands fluidly come back down to the knees. Okay? So that is my basic forward bending pose. So again, this is another assessment tool. If I see a person and I ask them, okay, bend your knees a little bit, sit up straight, put your arms up, bend forward, grab your feet. I'm going to get some data from that. Okay, this person, they can't touch their legs. They can't touch their feet. This person is holding their head up like that. This person has a large abdomen. They really need to lose weight. That's why you need to know about your nutrition to help them lose that girth. A lot of girth in the midsection. What is that? That's a predictor for heart disease. That person is setting themselves up for a heart attack. So you don't have to tell them that, but you can tell them, or you can make them aware of the risk factors in that in so many ways. Because I've had people tell me, oh, you know, I've had women tell me they was looking good, that they just thick, and they use these terms like thick and stuff. And it's like, that is a dangerous row of fat on your abdomen that is taking some years off of your life, and it's dangerous. But you have this idea in your mind that you're some kind of thick person that's nice, you know, and but that's dangerous. So So again, I think we've done these things before, but again, you open up the legs to give them room for the belly. You bend the knees. Try to get them to bend forward. If they can't grab their feet, they still don't grab their legs. Try to get them to grab their feet if they can and bend down. But that's the way you sort of compensate for that. Okay? And because the main thing is you want them to bend. You want them to go forward because as they go forward, they're increasing their blood circulation. As they go forward, they're breathing in, expanding the abdomen. They're breathing out and contracting the abdomen. And that's going to help them have better bowel movements. That's going to help their food to digest better. That's going to break up some of that congested fecal matter and gas pockets and things like that. Yeah, that's all that stuff is. When you see a person with that big belly, that's fecal matter and it's gas. It's just a buildup of waste materials that's inside the organs. And it's the liver itself becoming hard. So that stuff is dangerous. And so that's what we have to work on with people. But you have to do it in a gentle way, in a compassionate way, so that they're not feeling like, like you're insulting them. And so sometimes that's a hard thing to do. Because sometimes people feel insulted for no reason. Okay? And so your sun salutation may follow. So that's gonna start off with slash pose variation 2. Sitting up on the toes with the toes bent, right? And so people are going to be challenged with this too. So a lot of times you'll see people take something like a towel and they'll put it between here and there, or sometimes people sit on a block. I don't agree with that. I say sit like this, bend your toes all the way. Don't let your feet come apart. Keep your feet together and just sit down as far as your body allows you to go. Feel the lengthening in your Achilles tendon. Feel the bend in your toes. Hold the position for 3 breaths. Most of our positions, you only need to hold it for 3 breaths. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And then come out of it. If you are able to sit all the way down, just hold it for 3 breaths. After the 3rd breath, you inhale, you exhale, you lift, you wiggle your toes, you point, and you reverse the movement. Use your hands to control your weight and gradually introduce the weight onto your insteps. The insteps are the top of your feet. And sit down. Hands here. Make your pyramid. Inhale. Exhale. You're going to go into Mare. Mare means pyramid. Mesu Heru. That means child pose.
Is that sesh variation 3 when you
Sitting
go
like
back
this
on
is
your
sesh
instep?
variation 3.
Okay.
Doing this is Mare or Merkut. Doing this is Mare, Mesu Heru. So Mesu Heru means child pose. And then from here, when you come up to here, you do your lunge on the left leg, right? Do your lunge on the right leg, right? And then you go into Mesu Heru. And then transition into Wajet. From Wajet, transition into Nut. From Nut, transition into Cheetah. From Cheetah, go into Heru Akit. From Heru Akit, transition back into Wajet. From Wajet, transition back into Nut. From Nut, go back into Mesu Heru. Okay? And that's your whole sun salutation. That's variation 1. Now we got variation 2, 3, 4, and probably 5. We got many other variations and things that we can add into the sun salutation. But what I just did, that's what you are responsible for. Okay? So then the concept of why we sequencing this way is that we're going to take the body, from some basic practices, and we're going to increase gradually in terms of the difficulty. So you get into your sun salutation. And you may, depending on how much time you have, you may do it 1 time, you may do it 3 times. And then you're going to follow your sun salutation with your sitting pyramid forward bending pose. So the sitting forward bending pose you did previously, you had the knees bent, you set up, you put the arms out, you come to here, then you reach there. Okay. With this one, you still bend the knees, you sit up, but this time you slide the hands out. You put the left hand behind the left leg, right hand behind the right leg, you breathe in, and you exhale, bring your chest towards your thighs and your chin towards your knees. You hold it for 3 breaths, release, inhale up, put your legs flat, and then exhale your hands down, okay? And so that is your pyramid. Why is it called pyramid? Pyramid forward bending pose. It's called pyramid forward bending pose because you bend your knees, you make a pyramid shape. You flex your feet towards you, and you sit up on your sit bones, okay? Once you do that posture, you could do that 3 times. And then you come from that to here, come onto your arms, come onto your back, and then you bring your right thigh up, pull your thigh in, bring your chin to your knee, then you straighten your left leg, keep your left leg about 3 inches off the floor. Come back. Left thigh up, inhale, exhale, chin to the knee, inhale, and exhale, okay? Head down, bend the knee, leg down, and then bring both thighs up, wrap, thighs to the chest, head up, head down, grab your ankles, put your feet down, lift up into spider. So now you transition from forward bending into backward bending. You come down from there, and then you have options. You can repeat that 3 times if you choose to, or just do it 1 time, depending on how much time you want to devote to it. And then you can go into your spinal twist, which is like this. Okay, you got it? And you can also use your ma'aka to be, you can do ma'aka and Tekken sequence after that, or you can do ma'aka and Tekken sequence instead of your spinal twist. Okay? So after you finish your spider, most of the time when people do their spider, it really relaxes them and put them into a state where they just want to go into Sahu pose. So after that, you could do your second Sahu pose. And then when you come out of it, you can either do your spinal twist or you can stand up and you can do your Tekken sequence, because your Tekken sequence has what? It has twisting motions in it. Right? All of those twists is part of your Tekken sequence. You could do your Ma'ai because Ma'ai has the twisting motions in it. And then you can finish that up with doing, at the end, doing a Sahu pose, you know. Watch the videos that you have and just create something, okay? So I hope I didn't breeze through that too fast, but any questions?
Nice job.
No,
Oh, well,
it was very good. Yeah. I like the breakdown and the sequencing. It was really helpful.
yeah.
In
I have,
terms of, oh, sorry, go ahead, Tamika. You go
no,
ahead
you,
first. I was just gonna, I guess more of a comment than a question. So for me, I find when I'm instructing Kemetic classes, I tend to need more time. So, typically in a standard studio setting, it's maybe 60 minutes for a class. I feel like for Kemetic yoga, 90 minutes is ideal, or at least 75 minutes, just so we have time to really go through the progression and also to have a lot more focus on the rule of four breathing. Um, yeah, so like I said, I think just more of a comment than an actual question, but that's something that I noticed that I need for myself. And I guess maybe also the way that I explain poses as well, I find that I take a little bit more time. So I need it
Yeah.
to be a bit longer.
Well, I usually try to make my classes 90 minutes so that I feel like that's a good median space to have 90
Right.
minutes to practice. And you don't have to go like everything we did that I talked about and did today. You don't have to do all of that in one day. You can focus on the things that you feel like is important for people to know at that particular time. So you don't have to go through the whole sequence from A to Z. Sometimes I may even skip the cleansing breath and the Sahu pose at the beginning. And I might put those I might just do them at the end, you know. Sometimes I might say, okay, we're gonna work on taking sequence in my car. Might do that for the whole class. Might do sun salutation for the whole class. So it's up to you. You have to decide based upon your insight and based upon what you pick up. Being
Mm-hmm.
a yoga teacher to me is part of it is using your intuition, your inner sight, you know, because like I'm a social worker. I have a master's degree in social work. And when I was younger and I was doing social work, I would ask I had one supervisor and I would ask her like, well, what should I do in this situation and stuff? And she would always tell me, "But what do you feel you should do?" You know, so a lot of times when I go to teach a class, I don't know what I'm going to do that day. But then, the information or the direction I need to take, it comes to me. And then at the end of class, people say, "Oh, I'm so glad you did that because I had a such and such and such, and now it feels so much better." You know, and so that's part of being a yoga teacher. So being a yoga teacher is an extension of being a yoga practitioner. Your yoga practitioner should stimulate your psychic aspect of your consciousness and allow you to pick up things and know things before they, in ways that are, what people may say psychic or intuition or whatever terminology you want to use. And so you want to be able to trust yourself in that manner. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I find for me personally, I like the repetition of certain sequences. I feel like you get into more of a meditative flow, and then with each progression of the sequence, you get a little bit deeper, you notice more things. So for me
Mhm.
personally, I do like having more focus on a certain set of sequences per class.
Yeah,
But like you said, just, knowing your students, knowing, the atmosphere, what people need, etc.
yeah, yeah. Now, there's a logic to why we go the sequence that we go through from cleansing breath to Sahu pose, and there's a logic to why we go through that process, but you don't have to go that way all the time. You can change it. Okay. So I think that's all I got. It's ooh, it's almost 10 o'clock here, so we went almost well, we took we missed about 20 minutes, so we got the full time in, I guess. Um,
Baba, can I ask a quick question?
yes, ma'am.
You were talking about if someone has a large abdomen,
Mhm.
way to position the arms so that they're comfortable. What about a person that has a large behind and they're unable to lay flat on the ground? Like if there's like an arch in the back, I know that can be uncomfortable as well.
So what would you do?
I would suggest bending the knees because then that would take the pressure off the back. Is that
Yeah,
okay? Okay.
that's okay.
Okay.
You already know what to do. Just tell them
Okay.
make modifications, make logic. Let's use logic.
Okay.
Sometimes you can have people bend their knees, separate their legs, bend their knees, And because one thing about Black people, especially Black women, they've been traumatized going to these white people's yoga classes. And, oh, you're not a skinny little whatever, Mary Jane or whatever their name is, and there's a history of discrimination against the Black body, So we want to try to change that. So bending the knees, separating the feet some, bend the knees, tuck the hips under. When you do bend the knees, tuck the hips to get the spine as flat as possible. Sometimes you could, like when I'm working with pregnant women, I have them turn over onto their left side and put their hands underneath their head like this. And then you can also do that with women who are just, if you have a very large person, you could do that too. Just tell them, lay on your side, you know. And then sometimes you may see who's in your class. You may see, okay, we're not even going to get on the floor. We're going to be standing up and doing some stuff. Um, so, yeah. So just be versatile enough and just be sensitive enough to pick up the energy that you need to know. Because, your inner self is going to guide you to a lot of stuff.
Thank you.
Okay. So If there's no more questions, I'm going to end our class.
Thank you.
You're welcome.